Let's start by locating the dantian. So the thumb in the navel and the fingers reaching down to the top of the pubic bone. And feel that region. It's quite large. Find the middle of that region. That's the dantian. Just a bit lower than the navel. And then we want to feel the point on the spine. That's pretty much opposite that, called the Ming Men, the gate of life. That's like the rear dantian, and this here is like the front dantian. So this is like the center of the body. What's beneath it is the lower body, and what's above it is the upper body. And then find your hips. So my hip bones are here. The top of my iliac crests are here. So my dantian is quite a bit beneath that. If I was to have like a stick here and just balance it on the top of my legs, then it would pretty much cross the dantian. That would be the level of the dantian. What I want to feel when I'm standing, but here when I'm sitting, think of your sitting bones as being like two mini legs. And so the sitting bones are coming from the hips. They're the part of the hip. The hips come up and grab the sacrum. But it's very much as though they come up and then come down to grab the sacrum, because the sacrum is quite a bit lower than the top of the iliac crests. So what I want is a feeling that when I'm standing and also when I'm sitting, that my legs or my hips from the sitting bones are grabbing the spine at the Ming Men dantian rather than the sacrum. Because what I want to feel is that the sacrum and especially the tail has a little bit of mobility. It's not clamped by the legs or the sitting bones. So I want my tail to wake up. And what will make it recede into the background and become inactive is thinking. So the way we normally think with language and with reasoning is the death of the tail. So the tail has to sort of stop its activity for this to proceed. And effectively, so does this. So you can think of the tail being the very bottom of the spine. Now, the very top of the spine is the head, but there's a sense of something rising up out of the head here. Like a little tail. Imagine how wriggly and active the tail can be. There's something here that's extending upwards and sort of reaching around, looking around. We very much want this feeling, so there's activity at the two ends of the spine. And when I think to myself, those will just block off. That activity will stop. So when I'm meditating, I want the feeling that I'm holding myself here. I'm holding my spine at the dantian Ming Men. And the top of my spine has got this immense freedom. And the bottom of my spine especially has got this feeling that it can wriggle around. So that beautiful phrase from the Faith in Mind poem, stop activity and return to stillness, and that stillness will be even more active. So stop activity, the activity that we're trying to stop is the discursive, rational talking away to oneself in the head. And when you stop that, then the things that have had to fall asleep in order for that to take place can wake up. And particularly the two ends of the spine, they become incredibly active. It's like a much higher frequency of activity than the activity of the head. And this is just basically the rhythm of conversation, the rhythm of words, one after the other after the other. Whereas the tail and the top of the head, it's just immensely active and high pitched, high frequency. So this is like the next stage from quietening the mind. You know, we quieten the mind not so that we can have inner silence or inner inactivity, but so these higher activities can waken up. Then we just have to find a way of using them. It's very much related to the imagination. So the thinking mind represses the imagination because it wants to proceed reasonably, even if its reasoning is not particularly rational, even if it's sort of biased and self-centered. It still thinks of it as, you know, as a procedure towards the truth in a way. It argues to itself, generally trying to convince itself that it is right and everyone else is wrong. And completely the opposite of the imagination. The imagination is just, whoa, it's just flitting off everything, and images get created which take the mind by surprise. So standing in riding horse, but with that feeling that my legs have come up and are holding my spine at the Danchen Ming Men. The Min Meng it's the bit of the spine that curves in the most in the lumbar spine. So it feels like the middle. It feels like a natural juncture. So there's a sense that my legs have come up, they've risen up into the iliac crest and then come down a little bit and are holding the spine here. And then I can really get a feeling that my tail and my sacrum are hanging down. Try and feel the tail rather than the sacrum. We work a lot on the sacrum. And I want to feel the activity in the tail. It's capable of swinging side to side. And you can feel it how, you know, just a slight gesture, you know, a slight feeling of, ooh, something over there. You know, so my spirit becoming interested will produce or is produced by, hopefully, eventually, a very subtle movement in the tail. So there's a very tiny movement here in the tail, but that produces a big explosion of spirit and energy out of the upper body. So this sense that the part of your spine beneath the Ming Men is just a mirror of the part of your spine that's above it, but like a miniature version. So a little movement in the tail will produce a big movement here. Just feel the way the feet and the legs have to be in order to hold yourself here and allow some mobility in the tail. So let's just try, just hold as though you're holding here inside on the spine. It is the sacrum, obviously, it is the sacrum, but it's very much the top of the sacrum. and what's beneath that, so that the sacrum extending down and then into the tail has got more and more freedom the lower it goes. So I want to be able to just tilt my hips, just move the tail, get some sort of movement in the tail. Eventually, I'd like it to be simply the tail, and so just keeping my hips locked almost. But to start with, we just get the tail swinging. Imagine it's quite long, almost reaching the floor, and you're swinging your tail. And this, feel the point where it holds on so that what's beneath that can swing. That's the Ming Men. So I'm swinging my tail this side and this side. Just trying to get freedom in the tail and feel how the legs can support that and not block it. If my legs are too stiff, then there'll be so much stability and lack of movement here. I'd hardly be able to get anything into the tail. I'm just swinging to the side, swinging to the side. And just feel how it affects you. How do I feel? It's sort of got this playful quality. So that instruction that we were introduced to in the first lesson, keep your bum in. If you overdo that in any way whatsoever, it will tend to crush the tail, the activity of the tail. We want the tail to really open up, because without that, we won't really get down. We'll have to force ourselves into the legs. When the tail gets really active, there's a sense that it's really interested in the ground. It wants to burrow into the ground. It's like a little worm that would just feel much better if it was in the darkness underneath. So there's a sense that when I get my tail active, I'm sort of wriggling down into the earth. So the Dan Chen is very much the center of the earth. It's connecting you to the earth, all to do with your connection with Mother Earth, chthonic forces. Yes, it's quite painful in the legs because the legs are constantly having to relax in order to allow this movement. And just let it settle. But I don't want my settled to freeze. There's still the possibility of this movement, even if there isn't much of the actual movement. And then we want to get it swinging back and forth. So just letting the tail go back and then swinging it under. So now I'm having to work my lower back. It's like the arch in my back at the lumbar spine gets stronger, and then the tail swings under and it almost goes into a negative. So swinging under. Just feel how strong the legs have to be. They're not just holding you, they're supporting this movement. Feel it as the tail goes back, so does the top of my head want to. The top tail, if you like, and the bottom tail. want to point in the same direction. So as I point my little tail back, the top of my head is sort of reaching back. As I pull my tail under, the head comes over like this. Want to feel the movement, but also feel the mood, how it changes the way you feel. Quite a dramatic change from the way this feels, which is very sort of open and almost brazen in its confrontationalness, to the way this feels, which is the sort of submissive, almost depressed. So this is like a cat that's cheerful, its tail sticks up and its head is bright and looking out. And then this is like the cat whose tail has dropped down between its legs because it's not very pleased. So the tail goes back and my tail comes under. And then just back to riding horse. And feel the legs coming up and just holding me here. And then what's beneath can hang with some sense of freedom, like a pendulum. And now just turn. But feel it, the hips turning. So once you get the turning, the hips turning, then you can start twisting. So then you can take the shoulders even further. But you have to make sure that you are turning the hips as well as the shoulders. So here we just have to let the legs be relaxed enough for them to make these adjustments naturally in order to keep this turning, but also keep it level. All the time feeling the tail hanging down. So the tail has all of this potential in it. Feel the hips. Just use your hands, push this hip round, pull this hip back. And then maybe bring the feet up a bit and just turning naturally and easily. Still feeling the real change in the two legs that produces this turn. So without the tail and this point here being awake and full of activity, then there's no real sort of natural communication going on between you and your world, between you and, nature, let's say. So when we're walking, even just walking down the street, as long as it's not too populated by people, because the problem with society, with other people, is that their noisiness inside their heads will affect you. It will sort of almost like it's like a gravitational pull. It will pull you into the same misuse of the mind. This is why, if traditionally, if you want to seriously tackle the problems of spiritual work, you need to spend a lot of time away from people and be very careful about the society that you choose. So when you're walking in nature, let's say, so most people when they walk are still talking to themselves. They're still engaging in this sort of inner dialogue with themselves. So they're not really noticing what's in their environment. We just want to be the opposite of that. We've put that to sleep. We've stopped that noisy mind. And then the way you feel things, it's very much like, again, it affects the imagination. And so I see something and it just makes me respond in an energetic way, a spirited way, rather than in a thinking way. I don't consider things with my mind. I let myself resonate with the energies that are around me. Normally, we block all the energies around us out so that we can engage in our own inner processes of thinking and all the things the ego does, all its resentments and its fears. And riding horse, it's feeling that my tail is active. My tail can really point that way, and my tail can really point that way. So let's try that exercise again, feeling it held here, the spine. And as you tip the tail this way, just let your head go in that direction as well. And then tail here. moving from leg to leg. Now, what we find when we practice the form is that, we complete a posture, we come to the end of the posture. It's what used to happen in the classes. We'd get to the end of the posture, and then John would just say, relax. And you'd realize, oh shit, yeah, you can really relax. And the reason you can relax more is because you've got tense in the doing of the posture. And what that tension sort of is most expressed as is the legs holding the sacrum too tightly and pushing it up. So I want this feeling that I'm not actually holding my sacrum at all. My sacrum is just hanging. It's not just hanging inertly. There's real activity in the tail that we've just been working on. When I turn towards the foot, it's coming from here, and my tail and my sacrum are just hanging down between the feet. And then if I turn this way, so I turn, remember, by pulling with the empty foot, pulling myself round, a real sense that my sacrum is just relaxed, but not dead. It's relaxed and just hanging, ready. And then I pull with this foot. Not let the legs block out the activity from the sacrum and the tail. Pulling round. And what you find is it will really fold you here. So this feeling that my sacrum is just pulling right down to the ground. So when I come into a leg, so if I was to come into the front foot, for example, if I was going to push with my back leg, then I would come over the foot like this. So there's very much a sense that I'm sitting on top of the leg. If I'm pulling with this leg, then my sacrum can just remain heavy, hanging down. I'm very much sort of in the middle. Remember, John always used to say, when you're in the front foot, it's only 70%, and 70% isn't much more than 50. So it's closer to 50 than it is to 100. This feeling here that this is just hanging down loosely. I can still wiggle my tail around if I want to. And then this foot pulls. So no sense of this leg being used to push until it is less than 50% full. Remember, it's the empty leg that is active. So this leg is empty, so it's going to start pulling me and turning me. So this is constantly being stretched. And then once most of my weight is here, then this one can start to straighten without any fear of it actually pushing me over the leg like this, which will inhibit the tail and the sacrum. So this really is the vertical spine, the bum in. The bum in is really this. It's not me locking up this area. It's me just behaving like one of those dolls with a low center of gravity that you can't knock over. If you try and push it over, it just springs back up again. So I want to really feel this heavy. This is heavy, but it's really dangling down between my legs. And then I'm just vertical and I'm ready to engage and confront the world. So this is the idea of bum in, really. It just puts you in the perfect position to be able to exchange energies with your world. So you haven't got so engrossed in the doing of the posture that you've forgotten what the posture is for, which is communication, yielding and attacking. So this pulls round. All the time, this is dropping and sinking. This is rolling out like this. Then I can just gently squeeze here to push. But remember, I'm emptying the leg. I'm not pushing the hip round. so much as emptying my energy down and out. And that produces a flow in this direction. It's just difficult because to even see it, to be able to contemplate it or consider it, you just have to be internally quiet, but also internally very active. So this is pulling. Feel that, it's the knee. The knee wants to go out. The knee does go out. And it's that that opens my groin, pulls me, and starts me turning towards it. And then I'm there. So I've just come into this new space and I'm just full of interest and awe. It's like I'm awestruck, like you just can't talk to yourself because you're constantly awestruck. You're constantly wowed by what it is you're turning to face. The last thing that does is produce words of judgment or description. So I turn. My sacrum is heavy. My tail is moving. And that allows this to come out and just connect. This pulls. The knee goes out. Pulls me round all the time. This is sinking down. And I'm there. Yeah, so you can think of the tail, the top tail, as being here, or you can just think of it as coming out of the thymus. So my tail is moving. I can move it anywhere, really. I can point my tail anywhere I want. Coming under is a bit more difficult. I can certainly point it right behind me. I can even get it to go up my spine like a squirrel's tail. But this does the same. Whatever the tail is doing behind, this is doing in front. So turning and sinking. So this pulls, the knee goes out. Eventually I start turning. So we have to make sure we get the sequence right. So something sparks. That is my knee moving out, really, physically. That's the physical aspect of the spark. My knee tries to move out. That draws, stretches a line of energy from my weighted foot. I then allow my body to flow along it. So the knee is the spark of spirit, which generates this line of energy, and my body then flows along that to make sure I get the sequence. So I have to move really quite slowly. Spirit, energy, body. Spirit, the energy's flowing, the body flows along it. All the time this is allowed to sink. And then back to riding horse. I just feel just how difficult it is and how readily the legs get tired. That tiredness takes it out on the sacrum and the tail. I lose faith in my own strength, so I grip here too tight and everything freezes. And that higher frequency energy, the spirit energy, tends to just dampen away. So I'm holding here. I have to keep this open so that my tail can hang down And I get more and more full of this really active but very fine, sensitive delicacy. Okay. And now let's just bring a foot up. So sinking into the leg, bringing this foot up and just pull it up to get yours, almost crank the tail down into the supporting leg. So when I pick a foot up, there's a sense that my tail has gone down the supporting leg. Now the tail is happier really, wafting away behind you. So to get it to come down here, it's a bit like pulling the tail between the legs. So your lower back has to flatten out a bit, and this lifting of the knee just helps that. Imagine that the very tip of your tail is a little eye. So what does it see now that it's looking down into the ground? What's underneath there? Let's squat down. Just feel it. How everything changes when you get this close to the ground, and how different squatting is like this to actually just sitting on the cushion. So when you're sitting in meditation, if you're doing it in any way correctly, then the head is really lifting. Here, you're just crouched up and just very close to the ground. You're bundled up. And then bring some weight forwards into the arms, feeling the arms filling up with strength to support the spine. And then using the strength of your arms, push yourself back over the feet. Then pulling forwards again, using the strength of my arm, the bending strength of my arms to pull my weight forwards over the hands. And now I'm going to use the straightening strength of my arms to push myself back over the feet. I want to feel that point where I'm straightening the arms to move myself, but then I have to start bending the arms to stop myself from falling backwards. There's just feeling that point where it switches from the straightening to the bending. And the same thing here, if I pull myself forwards again, I'm bending my arms to pull myself forwards. But then once I get past a certain point, I have to start straightening the arms to stop myself from falling forwards. So feel the weight flowing down the arms. Feel your strength pushing back against that. We want to feel it as energy, not a balance of forces. I want to feel the weight, the gravity flowing down my arms into the ground. And I want to feel the ground flowing up through that to support me. So it's two flows, it's not two forces producing a still, frozen situation. It's two flows that remain flows. And then I straighten the arms to start pushing myself back. And then there's a point where I have to just grip and hold on with my hands, effectively bending them a little bit to stop my body falling backwards. And one more. Bending the arms, body is slowly moving forwards. Feel the weight in the heels. That's the point really where you have to start straightening the arms. And then back, very gently straightening. Feel that squeezing. So the feeling is you're not so much pushing the ground in order to push your body back. The feeling is that the straightening of the arms is more like a squeeze that's inserting into the ground. You're squeezing into the ground, which eventually produces a movement backwards. Remember, the energies very much precede the movements of the body. And you just have to be patient Then back into the squat with the hands together. So using the elbows to push the knees out to open the groin and around the sacrum. And then back up. And now let's finish with a little bit of this one. Feeling the looseness in the groin. Again, you can really feel that this activity is helping the tail swing, start to move. And you can also feel that, ooh, it's getting something going up here as well. And then just bring it back, bring the toes in a bit. Just keep the legs right on the edge of starting to bend. So relaxing, endlessly relaxing. Only then can the energy flow through. Tension will tend to block out the energy.